On a giant scale and on a microscopic scale, my mind is always being blown by observing these rhythms and patterns. And these rhythms and patterns, I believe, are sacred. It took billions of years for this to evolve. This is how life flourishes. These are nature's operating instructions. This is how life works. And why wouldn't we want to observe that, take advantage of that, and look at that not only as a healing modality, but with biomimicry, a solution for how we can all live in harmony with the planet. And if we don't do that, as we're understanding right now, we've reached a critical point with climate change, environmental degradation, that if we don't shift our behavior, we're going to be in serious trouble.
Welcome. I am very excited to have today's guest on the way, who is a filmmaker who's been very inspiring in my life to help us understand the beauty of nature and the great complexity of nature, often that we miss because here we are, human beings living on a time scale of maybe 70 to 100 years. And yet there are many different beings on our planet that live for hundreds of years or maybe just a few days. And the filmmaker that I am talking to today has developed the art of being able to capture the lives of many different beings, from plants to fungi to insects and winged beings and many more. Louie Schwartzberg, what a privilege and pleasure to be in conversation with you.
It's great to be here with you, George, and love your movie.
Yeah, well, we've collaborated on my upcoming film, The Subtle Art of Losing Yourself, and we are both passionate about, finding a connection with nature, and not just a rational connection of, everything's interconnected, but actually a sense of love for what we are a part of. And I'd love to know, what's been your journey of why your mission statement is we protect what we love? Like, why is love an important energy for you?
Well, I think that before love, there's beauty, and that is important because you want to get turned on, first of all, and that beauty motivates love, which is behavior, right? And so I'm always trying to go deeper and deeper and deeper into, like, what is the mystery? What is the mystery of life? Not that I really want to get to an end point, because maybe life is just a journey of trying to unfold the mystery. But for me, I started to, shoot time-lapse in college, whether it's clouds and flowers. And then when I heard about the fact that the bees were disappearing, colony collapse disorder, I did a film called Wings of Life. I got Meryl Streep seducing bees, bats, hummingbirds, butterflies to come get her. And then I go, wow, well, then maybe pollination is the foundation of life. Because without that, interaction between the animal world and the plant world, there would be no fruits, nuts, vegetables, seeds, no food for us to eat. And when you realize that what plants do is they take light energy and they create chemical compounds that are called food. And we actually do eat light energy, but then plants also need soil. And those complex, minerals and compounds that come from soil didn't come from nowhere. They actually came from fungi that recycle organic matter into the soil, which becomes the building blocks for plants to absorb, which then we absorb into our body. So then I figured, then they must be the foundation of life, because if you ask most people, college-educated people, where does soil come from? They would not know the answer. We don't understand the most basic things on planet Earth. Most people probably don't know that a fruit or a vegetable comes from a flower. They probably think flowers are just pretty, and beautiful to look at. But without the flower, there's no food for animals. And if there is no food for animals, whether you're vegan or not, then there's no food for you. So I love exploring these stories, and I find them to be engaging, really, really entertaining, and it's a departure from the typical storytelling of Hollywood, which is all based on conflict and fear and exploitation and revenge. Now, those films work because, networks and studios, they always say they want the audience to be on the edge of their seat, And what does that mean? It means they're giving you an adrenaline rush, with fear and conflict, car chase, fighting, guns, blood, whatever it might be. And yeah, it does give you an adrenaline rush, but that adrenaline rush, guess what, is negative. And I'm not saying that from a critical, subjective point of view. If you have adrenaline going through your body, if you're put into the fight and flight mode, what is happening is that creates cortisol. And instead of running away from that danger, which your body was designed to do, if there was a saber-toothed tiger chasing you, you would either escape or you'd be eaten. But it would only be a 5-minute experience at most. Instead, we're sitting there with cortisol going through your body, which creates inflammation. And now they found out it shortens the telomeres inside your cells. And that shortens your life. So I can really say that it's going to kill you or that you won't live longer, scientifically proven. And we have to, I think, get away from that addiction. Like junk food is an addiction. Smoking cigarettes is an addiction. It took a long time for people to wake up that it wasn't good for you. And still, there's always going to be people who can argue the opposite, that smoking's not bad for you, or junk food's not bad for you, or, watching violent films is not bad for you. People are going to say, oh, I know it's fake, but if it's secreting hormonal activity throughout your body, I would say it's bad for you. So therefore, the films we want to make are films that can give you a rush, but a positive rush. I'm talking about serotonin and endorphins going through your body when you're turned on and connected to beauty.
On beauty, what's an example of like an astonishing relationship that you found in nature that's just like a wow story? If there's any nuggets that you could share.
Well, I think every time I film a time-lapse flower, I don't ever get bored because I have no idea precisely the way it's going to open up the camera, and they tend to do these beautiful kind of ballet pirouette moves. And guess what? Each one is different. It's not like, oh, I shot a red rose, done, or I shot a sunset, done. I don't need to do that again. I've shot time-lapse clouds forever, just came back from Hawaii. Why am I shooting time-lapse clouds? Because the way they metamorphosize is always going to be a different pattern that engages me, and I want to be able to record that. I want to be able to share that. And so I'm constantly being turned on, constantly, by phenomena that I've observed, but also by unique phenomena. I shot the monarch migration in Mexico. I've been surrounded by 100,000 butterflies. I heard the sound of wings flapping, That was one of the highlights, I think, of my life. So, on a giant scale and on a microscopic scale, my mind is always being blown by observing these rhythms and patterns. And these rhythms and patterns, I believe, are sacred. It took billions of years for this to evolve. This is how life flourishes. These are nature's operating instructions. This is how life works. And why wouldn't we want to observe that, take advantage of that, and look at that not only as a healing modality, but with biomimicry, a solution for how we can all live in harmony with the planet. And if we don't do that, as we're understanding right now, we've reached a critical point with climate change, environmental degradation, that if we don't shift our behavior, we're going to be in serious trouble.
Yeah, and life has created these systems of interconnection that have lasted millions and millions of years. And so there is a wisdom to that. And then the myth of progress, that technology will save us. And, technology's done a lot of beautiful things, like we're able to speak to each other, me in the UK and you in the West Coast, which is beautiful, while also there's a lot of hubris to imagine that these new linear growth ideas and technologies can somehow create a utopia while ignoring the deep wisdom that nature has created over millions and millions of years. And the proof is in the pudding, given the great interconnected, sustainable web.
All of these like new technologies all depend on electricity, and a ton of electricity like AI, and that puts out a giant carbon footprint. So it's not sustainable, you know? It can't, I mean, I guess people are scared about AI taking over. AI needs to figure out how to create energy without polluting the planet. Let's throw that question in front of it.
Yeah, I'm still banking on fusion, which is a long shot off. Yep. I'd like to come back to just this word sacred that you use, because I think for me, it's a word that really is what I've come to as I am in nature, and I love how accessible you make this connection with nature. It's like, look at the clouds, and just actually be with the clouds, be with the sunset. There's not like some rarefied, you don't have to go off to the savannah in Africa to film big lions as, some privilege, like obviously you have the privilege of seeing the stories of certain animals and characteristics in nature that maybe your average person wouldn't, but a sunset can get you exactly the way that you need to get to, because that waking up experience can happen. For me, trees are something that I particularly resonate with, and I have had wow experiences of just connecting with a tree that's 300 years old and connecting with that sense of sacred. What does that mean for you, and why is that a word that you've used and seems important to you?
Well, I believe that everybody should have their own personal view on spirituality, and that everybody should have their own inner voice. And one way to connect to your inner voice is beauty in nature. It's kind of a lubricant, I think, because you don't know what's going to really touch your soul, and that's the fun part of it. We talked earlier about just going on a walk and having that sense of surprise, like what's going to turn you on. You don't know. And that's great that you don't know. It's not like I go out and I go, I'm going to shoot this beautiful thing today. I'm just going to go out with my camera and I'm going to wait to see what rhythms and patterns connect with my soul. And when it connects with my soul, I call it sacred because basically it's a portal into the divine. And that's what a lot of spiritual practices try to do, is to connect with divine, to be filled with wonder and awe, to be present, and that happens naturally. So I don't have to have a breathing practice or a yoga practice to do any of this stuff. I allow myself to be turned on. I allow myself to feel wonder and awe, which when you realize it kind of, stops you in your tracks. A lot of times when people watch my films, the most common reaction, and probably yours as well, they go, oh my God, And what does oh my God mean? Well, oh means I stopped you in your tracks, made your jaw drop. My means it touched your soul. And God is that universal energy we all really want to connect to, whatever that is, whatever you want to call it. Source, God, the universe. We all want to feel connected to it. There's a comfort in that feeling. And most people who make that connection also lose their fear of dying, because you feel that at some point I'm just going to, be connected with the universe, and I'm okay with that. And that for a lot, dying for a lot of people is a giant existential issue and threat. Like, what happens when you die? And I don't have that answer, but I do know that I feel comfort in feeling that I just might become part of everything.
Beautiful. And I feel the same. It's like George passes away and this body passes away, but energy is always transforming, and I turn into new forms, and I do continue. And this confluence of 37 trillion cells, the emergent property of which is this human being with stories and ideas of me being an English person and liking certain types of biscuits and not liking too much stimulation, whatever, then, that's a story that I create from this confluence of the base matter consciousness that life is. And so then in a real sense, I do continue. I'd love to talk a little bit about community as something I know that we're both passionate about. There is a movement of people that are waking up to our relationship with nature and our potential for peace. And you and I, we've made a film together. You are the executive producer for The Subtle Art of Losing Yourself, my second film, which is coming out soon. And I'd love any viewers and listeners to watch the film and it's in the Cairngorm Mountains in Scotland, and we see the intelligence of the animals there. And then we ask, well, what does that say about our intelligence and where we come from? And then as we adventure through the Scottish Highlands, we find an awe-inspiring understanding of who we are and our place in the universe. And we're both passionate about these, wow moments of insight when we create our films. And we're also both passionate about community. So I'm interested of why you think community is important, and maybe talk a bit about what you're doing in regards to that.
Yeah, well, one of the big takeaways for me when I made Fantastic Fungi was learning about the mycelial network. I certainly knew a little bit about mushrooms and fungi, but what a great story the mycelial network is as a beautiful example of how nature works and a model for how we could live our lives as well. So the mycelial network is this incredible internet under the ground that shares nutrients and information from plants and trees to one another. It's like a shared economy without greed that enables ecosystems to flourish. And, they discovered all of this with Suzanne Simard, who's a professor in Vancouver. She put a radioisotope in a tree over here, and then it traveled 100 yards underground to a tree over there, and had scientific evidence that they are communicating to one another through this mycelial network. So the trees aren't individual trees. A forest is a community. Indigenous people always recognized it in that way. And I think it's a microcosm of how we should live our lives, our communities, our cities, our countries, whatever, should use that as a model, that when ecosystems flourish based on a shared economy of sharing, that is a model for survival. Nothing lives alone in nature. Nothing lives alone in nature. Everything somehow involves a symbiotic relationship of some kind. And therefore, that's nature's operating instructions. And instead of ignoring that, we ought to adopt it. This idea of individuality has kind of gone off the deep end a little bit. We're all individuals, all trying to have giant ambition, trying to, change the world or build empires and companies on our own. That's kind of gotten extreme, because that point of view is not the point of view of indigenous cultures. They always recognized that it was teamwork that got anything done. And actually it's teamwork even in civilized country. Who built London? Was it one person? No. Humans are really good at cooperation. And even with Darwin, I think that was the most important aspect of our species, is adaptability and cooperation. No single human being is strong enough, smart enough to do anything on the grand scale.
We're the only species that blush, right? The only species that involuntarily have our internal emotions painted on our face in a beautiful rosette color in order to create a connection where we can, be vulnerable even involuntarily, where ideally we might want to lie. So, that's our superpower. And our current systems have, just diminished our trust in our ability to cooperate. And therefore, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Conservatives in the UK or Republicans in America, and people have their own political views, but parties that come into power saying government can't do anything, then ta-da, come into power and they can't do anything. So they fulfill their prophecy of what they said was possible. And so, yeah, I think, I think nature again tells the story of how to do it. It's like there's freedom, there's diversity, individuation within unity and within collaboration. So they don't have to be this either or, like either you have totalitarian communism or you have, just everyone's out for themselves and it's a dog-eat-dog world. You can have freedom within cooperation. And really
that's why I think, George, your film is so important. I mean, self-care equals world care. This isn't like we want to just, shoot a beautiful sunset and stare at our navel. We are putting out a message and a model for how life works. And so therefore, I really do feel the films we make are political. Because what we're doing is we're shifting values, and values create behavior. And they're more effective than any kind of intellectual argument of what you should or should not do. Everyone loves their kid. They're all going to protect their kid. We're hardwired to do that. We are hardwired to love beauty. We're hardwired in so many ways to make life want to go forward. Life is a force of energy. It's just passing through us. We're just we're a link, obviously, in a chain of ancestry that goes back millions of years. And so another example of a genius invention called reproduction that enables, a species with diversity and, the ability to adapt to multiple changes in our environment to get better. We're part of that. But a lot of times we think we are the end all of everything, and we're not. We are just one, what's the great example? Like in terms of life on our planet, the humans, arrived like 3 seconds before the stroke of midnight.
Yes.
We've been in here for a fraction of a second.
Yeah, like if I was to hold out my hand and all of human history is in the length of, if I was to file my nail from the start of Earth to the fingertip, all of human history is just filing my nail. So
good example.
Yeah, we think we're the pinnacle, but we're part of a field of intelligence, and an elephant can experience things that I can't and have an intelligence or a wisdom to relate to life and solve problems in ways that I can't. And likewise with the trees, and they have experiences and understandings that I don't have. So to come back to that reverence, and I want to just again say thank you for your work. And 50 years you've been running time lapse, capturing the beauty of nature, and I think it's a real service that you are doing to this planet to help us reconnect. Because once we see it, it's like, wow, we're part of this great web of intelligence and life and beauty. And once we see that, then the heart awakens.
And what's beautiful is once the heart awakens, you can't undo it. You can't unsee it.
Yes. And as we begin to close, I always like to end with any kind of practical advice. Like if our beautiful listeners who maybe have been inspired to reconnect with what they are a part of, how could they do that? Any actions?
Well, I made a film also called Gratitude Revealed after I did Fantastic Fungi. And for me, gratitude is, again, another easy practice that one can do when we all run into those little, bumps in our life when things happen. And for me, it's beautiful because it just enables you to kind of slow down, catch your breath, and then ask yourself a simple question. What could I be grateful for? And no matter where you are, whatever you're doing, whether it's like the fact that I'm breathing, the fact that I can walk, the fact that I have friends, the fact that I have, a child, whatever it might be, the fact that I'm staring at the leaves, rustling in the tree, wherever I am, allow yourself to feel grateful. And if you feel grateful, then it makes you present. And when you become present, you will therefore become grateful. And so it's kind of a circle that, feeds itself over and over.
So gratitude, yeah, beautiful, timeless, important practice that has been supportive for me as well. A quote I love is, human beings have an almost unlimited capacity to take everything for granted.
Yeah.
So we need to consciously bring that awareness back. It's like there is this beauty to life. Yes, there's challenge, but when we come into relationship with the beauty, it means we hold the challenge in more spaciousness, more groundedness, more resilience.
I think COVID also kind of, it taught us about the things we take for granted, like not being able to have, see your friends and family for dinner, not being able to go out and travel. These were all the things we take for granted. So being grateful for the little things in life is really a beautiful practice that will, I think, make life richer for you.
Beautiful. If people want to find out more about what you're doing, anything you're excited about sharing, what could they look at?
Well, I would say go to the Louie channel. We're always going to be posting new videos and, developing this network of community with filmmakers like you, George. And we want to be like, a really cool place where people can visit, where we guarantee no toxic imagery, no violence, no conflict. Hopefully, no cortisol and inflammation in your body by watching what you think in your brain is fake, like some kind of superhero film where there's a zillion fights and car crashes and killings. No matter what, the brain thinks it's real. You can't fool the brain in terms of not having that fear response that I need to protect myself. It's primal, it's powerful, but what we need to do is give it something more engaging to look at. Beauty, hope, love, nature is a way to kind of turn your head away from staring at a car crash or a politician that knows how to press your buttons by being vulgar and racist. It's hard to ignore that. I think it's good to be aware of it, but let's all not get sucked into that world.
Yeah, and the Louie channel is an awesome resource, and my film, The Subtle Art of Losing Yourself, will be on there as well, and some of my other videos. So yeah, if you want to go see some of my work, as well as all the beautiful content from Louie's work, as well as other filmmakers, louiechannel.com is the place to go. Louie, thank you so much for your time. What a privilege and pleasure to be in conversation with you.
Keep up doing the great work, George. I know that you're passionate about it. I know that you probably chose to be born in this time and place to do what you're doing. And it's nice to know when you're aligned with your mission. I hope everybody finds their passion and aligns with whatever mission. But we all chose to be here in this critical time of, really looking at, survival of the planet. So let's all, join forces and work together as one giant community and make life flourish and celebrate life.
Thank you, Louie.
Thank you. Keep it up.